heightened doubts about Kim Jong-un's commitment to denuclearization. The State Department downplaying reports that Pyongyang is cheating on its promise and secretly seeking to expand its nuclear capabilities.
The Secretary has addressed that extensively, in which he said that North Korea is very clear in terms of our expectations. We've had very clear conversations with them. There will be no surprises in terms of what we are asking them to do. Our policy remains the same today as it was going into the Singapore summit.
Jim Carafano is the Vice President of the Heritage Foundation's Davis Institute for National Security and Foreign Policy. Thank you for joining me here today. Happy 4th.
Good to be with you.
So kicking things off here, as you just heard, there was Heather Nauert there, the State Department spokesperson, talking about the summit. And here we have Mike Pompeo returning now to Pyongyang. I think this is his third trip back, his fourth with North Koreans in general. We got very little information from the State Department of exactly the strategy, what he'll be specifically working for on this trip. What do you think of this return and the timing right now, and what sort of success could potentially come out of it?
Well, there's obviously something really seriously going on here. It's not just this. It's also the U.S. ambassador to the Philippines was also in North Korea doing talks, and Pompeo was scheduled to do some very, very important talks with India with Secretary Mattis, and those were long-standing and canceled, so he could do this. So here's what I think is going on. The first step in this, if the North Koreans are really serious, is they have to agree to a complete declaration of all their capabilities and what they have and their weapons and their program. So we can have all this blah, 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 you know, I saw this photograph and I got this leak and whatever. All that's irrelevant. What really matters is we can't do anything until we know exactly what they have and the two sides agree to that. And if they don't agree to that, this whole thing's dead. And I think we'll know that within a month.
So that's the starting point we could look for. We'll see if we actually get that list, and certainly this meeting about a day and a half long. Yeah. So who knows what will be accomplished in that amount of time. National Security Advisor John Bolton had set out a one-year timeline aiming for the dismantling of North Korea's nuclear program. At the State Department, Heather Nauert seemed to push back a little on that. Take a listen.
I know some individuals have given timelines. We're not going to provide a timeline for that. The Secretary is looking forward to having his meetings. A lot of work is left to be done, certainly. We go into this eyes wide open, very clear, with a very clear view of these conversations.
So she does acknowledge there are some suspicions, and as you mentioned, we still need the list of exactly where everything is, what it is, and then you can start working towards some sort of timeline as to when that'll all be out of there, which is, of course, the world goal, denuclearization. What do you think about the back and forth there with what Nauert is saying and what Bolton had said previously? Is this all just still developing?
Yeah, well, let's be clear. This isn't going to be like the North Korea just gives us a list. The way you have a verified declaration is you have to actually go in and see this. So it's a process that you go through, and that process itself, which is absolutely the critical first step, that could take months.
Here's what the president had to tweet about this most recently. Many good conversations with North Korea. It's going well. In the meantime, no rocket launches or nuclear testing in 8 months. All of Asia is thrilled. Only the opposition party, which includes the fake news, is complaining. If not for me, we would now be at war with North Korea. So, in essence, is there a point to be made that things were escalating very quickly, and now they seem to be perhaps de-escalating, but at least at a calmer standstill? Is that seen as a success, and as the president mentions, particularly in Asia?
No, look, I think there's two things going on here. There's this public back and forth between the president and his critics, which is on every issue, which we just put off to the side. So the reality is the administration has put a strategy in place, maximum pressure, nuclear deterrence, missile deterrence, sanctioning, conventional deterrence. That protects our vital interests. The question is, if North Korea really wants to denuclearize, he's set up this process. That process is going to either move forward or not move forward. We'll know that in a couple of weeks. All this other stuff is just people yelling back and forth because that's what we do in Washington.
Yeah, these 4 pillars were put in place. We'll see if we get closer to meeting any of those. Jim Carafano, thank you very much. Happy 4th.
Thanks for having me.
Quite understandably, families in agony as members of a teenage